and welcome back to Optimal Nate. Today, I present to you the newest issue from the official Star Trek Starships collection, featuring issue 10, the USS Dauntless. As seen in the show, the Star Trek Prodigy. This is one of the newest ships featured in the Star Trek Starships collection. It's an amazing piece to look at just from the artwork here in the cover. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the first ship that's been featured from Prodigy in this series. We are now officially halfway through this series with 10 more to go. This one here is on the smaller scale. So before we get into the contents of our subscription kit here, let's take a look at the artwork on the box, shall we? So here you have an amazing rendering of the ship on the cover. I like the style of the hull there going down to the front. Now the secondary hull slopes down the back with the warp nacelles on the sides. I'm definitely getting USS Voyager vibes with this ship so far. On the side we have an overhead view, as we typically do with our previous ships, where it's shown flying from overhead. Very sleek in design. You have Fan Home logo on this side. You have another piece of artwork showing the model on its stand. Okay, another Fan Home logo, and on the bottom, as we typically have, the website with the Star Trek logo and more literature you can go over if you want. All right, let's open this up and take a look inside. So, as always, you get your magazine with each subscription. This is a beautiful 3D rendering. I love that underside shot where it leads up to the front of the ship. That is amazing. The NCC-8 USS Dauntless. Now, I have not watched the Prodigy series, so I cannot give you a lot of information as far as to how the ship was utilized in the show or not. But regardless, we'll go over what we have here today. So, let me turn this flash off so we don't have all that glare. So, USS Dauntless. It is the Dauntless class. It became active in 2384. Commander was Admiral Janeway. Weaponry, it had phaser cannons, photon torpedoes, and quantum torpedoes. And propulsion, it has the warp speed, impulse, and quantum slipstream. If I'm not mistaken, the USS Dauntless was one of the fastest ships ever created in Star Trek for the Federation. I could be wrong, but if I'm not, give me a thumbs up for that. So let's go check out some more of the contents here. I'm assuming this would be the final rendering for the ship before they publish this. That's absolutely beautiful. And so it says it was developed in 2370s and 2380s, making use of the technology that the crew of the USS Voyager had recovered during their time in the Delta Quadrant. So definitely that had an influence on this ship. It was based on scans the crew took of a ship operated by Arcturus, which was equipped with a quantum slipstream drive. Pretty cool. When the Dauntless was launched in the 2380s, it was one of the most advanced ships in Starfleet and one of the few to be fitted with a quantum slipstream drive. I'm loving this part right here on the top where the bridge, I'm assuming this is where the main bridge would be, the higher officers' quarters and observation lounge perhaps. And there's some different angles inside. You can see the ship and the artwork here. Pretty cool. There's another beautiful 3D rendering. It talks more about designing the Dauntless. When you want, you can read that if you've got this one. Here's some concept sketches of the original design. Pretty cool. That's the one thing I've always enjoyed about getting these ships, is when you look at the magazines, you can really see and get into the design perspective of these ships. I'm assuming these are the final renderings before they went to producing the ship for the show. You got some different parts here to talk about what they have in here, and this breaks it down some more for you. All right, so let's put that aside and move on to our ship. All right, take this out. We're going to turn our flashy thingy back on so we can see a little better. Here's our bracket to hold our ship. We're going to set that aside. If you're new to my channel and this is your first time watching, this is what I always like to call the hockey puck. These come with every ship for your stand, and they have these annoying little wrappers on them. They can be a little tedious to take off. If I can give you some ASMR crinkling effect here. All right, these are pretty solid bases, and they got a nice piece of felt in the bottom so they won't get stuck to your woodwork or plastic on your shelves or wherever you display it. Your ship already comes assembled, so you don't have to put any of it together, which I do appreciate. That is magnificent. You can see a lot of the port windows on there. It's a lot different from your regular ships where you have a typically round saucer section, where this is more of an arrowhead style. The warp nacelles are tucked underneath, where most of the time, like your Enterprise ships, the Sovereign classes and so forth, they have them set up on the pylons that are up higher around the back end of the saucer. So I don't know if this was supposed to help for the slipstream drive that they add to the ship. That's what I'm going to assume here. That's pretty decent. Trying to see where the shuttle bay would be. I'm going to guess at this tiny little spot here, it almost looks like a shuttle bay door. That could be one. I believe these could be for your torpedoes, for your rear aft torpedoes. I'm going to go with impulse engines here on the sides. Now, I don't know much about this ship because, like I said, I haven't watched Prodigy, but I'm going to assume that this port here and this one have something to do with the slipstream drive. That's just my guess. And then get a nice little close-up of the front end of the saucer. I'm not quite sure if that's for torpedoes. I'm definitely going to go with phaser arrays for that. You got some kind of coil effect going around here, which I believe might be for some additional weaponry. This appears a little bit more narrow for where we saw the port windows on the other artwork, but I'm assuming this was for the final design and wasn't going off that one rendering I showed you. So definitely a well-designed ship. I don't know what the compliment was for this ship. I focus more on the aesthetic and appeal of the details and the design of the ships, but I do appreciate you taking your time to watch these videos. Also, I will mention too, if you've been watching any of the episodes I've done on this subscription, if you think you know anybody else that you know enjoys Star Trek and loves the ships, I would greatly appreciate it if you could share these to your friends or family, as this will help get these videos out for them to see them. I am deeply humbled by that. Alright, so let's get this set up on our stand, shall we? So I've got a decent little turnaround table here that we can use to help do our display. Let's set back here a little bit. Now I can turn this a little better. I had another one that I used a while back in the beginning of the series. It was a lot smaller, but it barely held the ships, and I felt like they were always going to tip over, but this is nice and solid. This is more of a carousel that you could use for your seasonings in your kitchen, but I just love the fact that it's got a wide enough base that I can do a complete turnaround for you guys. It's a little better. Here we go. Now you can really see the detail on this in the sculpt. So what do you guys think so far? I'm impressed overall with this. It's not typical for most of the ships that I like to do. So if you are not subscribed to my channel, please click the bell so you can receive notifications of upcoming videos. And if you've enjoyed this presentation, please give it a thumbs up, as it does help the channel. I will be updating you soon when I find out when the next ship is coming out. Let the audience know if you've enjoyed this ship. And as my saying goes, stay humble and true, my dudes. Thank you for watching. Fly